There once was a man named Bhenji. He worked every day with one thing on his mind, spending his hours and minutes ranking his games. He didn't care whether they were long or short, easy or hard. And so here we sit at the edge of the world with Bhenji's top 100 games. Marvel Universe Miniatures game. Okay, it's been a while since this was discontinued, but until I give Marvel Crisis Protocol a go, this is here to stay. Fantastic miniatures are a must, and that's very much a check. Some cool and a little bit different mechanics for a miniature tabletop game work for me as well. Choosing how you use your allocated power each turn is great. You can use more for movement and have less for attacks and abilities, or vice versa. The rules allow for jumping and climbing on top of buildings, and also throwing things, and other people for that matter, and it just gives you a really good overall sense of what these superheroes can do. I wish the abilities of our heroes were a bit more thematic. They literally just have names and effects, but that's an ultimately small grumble in what is just a great game. But will it be displaced this time next year, with the new arrival bringing fresh legs? Legacy of Dragonholt. This is what you get when an RPG and a choose your own adventure meet up, have a whirlwind romance and then sprug out a baby. The fact that this CYOA with a character creation and a very distilled set of RPG attributes can be played solo or multiplayer really does make this accessible for a really wide audience. The adventure modules are also in appropriate sized chunks of played time as well. None of this works that well, of course, without an entertaining story underpinning the gameplay, and it's definitely a good one. You arrive in the titular town and it's a sandbox game in that sense. You have finite time each day to visit people in town, and then when you're ready to set off on different adventures, they have their own book. You then succeed or fail at each encounter, largely dependent on the attributes you've chosen and gained throughout. I gotta say, this really filled a niche in my collection, and I remained very fond of it to this day. Last Friday. Holy theme-tastic hidden movement game, Adam West. This is just the sort of game I envisage when I want to hunt and track down a hidden foe, and the fact that that subject is a reanimated and deranged killer chasing down bewildered campers gives it some real flavour. The added bonus to this otherwise fairly straightforward movement game is that roles are reversed at times throughout the 4 acts of the game, that you can either play standalone for a shorter experience or play all 4 in one sitting to complete the story. Each time a different set of objectives and perspectives are set forward based on the narrative, but that ultimately don't require you to learn 4 different games, as the mechanics stay more or less the same. I just think the theme works perfectly for what this is trying to do, and the artwork on the board and on all of the components just permeates that theme perfectly. Oh, and it accommodates 6 players out of the box. Gravy. Jamaica. This is a racing game with a twist, one where the race is almost secondary to the overall purpose of the game, that being to manage your resources most appropriately, keeping enough food on board, enough munitions to prosper in combat, and enough gold to contribute to your final score when one person crosses the finish line. All this in one lap around the island of Jamaica on a pirate ship. Each turn starts with a roll of the dice, and the captain whose turn it is gets to place those dice in morning and evening slots that correspond with the action cards that each and every one of you have in your hand. Some will move you forward, some back, some give you resources, and so on. But finishing your move on the right space around the board is crucial, because if you don't have the right stuff in your ship's hold, you may well be taking the snake back a few spaces. Glorious entertainment, me hearties. Spectre Ops, Broken Covenant. 2 hidden movement games in one segment? A suspicious someone might think that I split into tiers mechanically. Alas no, because we trade slasher horror for science fiction here, for a game that modifies itself slightly to player count. The ultimate goal is for the one, the agent, to capture some mission objectives before the many, the hunters, track you down, shed some blood and ultimately cut you down. This hidden movement game brings line of sight very much to the fore. If you as an agent cross the hunter's vision, there's going to be a blip placed on the board, and if you're visible at the end of the turn, you're a sitting duck for the hunters. Both sides also have special abilities that will either help the hunters narrow down the location of the agent, or will help the agent press the "oh crap, I need to leg it" button. This creates a real sense of tension, which is what you want from this type of game, and is why it's this high on the list. Guild Ball. Rough and tumble football. Sorry, soccer miniature tabletop game. Yes please? When this game was released, it was so balanced, so finely tuned and play tested, it was an absolute delight to play. You can win the game by two main means: playing soccer or battering and bruising your opponents into submission, or just as often undertaking a combination of both. This is a skirmish sized tabletop game played on a 3x3 playing field, and all of the dice rolling is target number based. Then each player has a multitude of different options based on the number of successes they roll. Since the game's release, the game's faction count has, I would guess, doubled at this point, and so the choices are literally endless in terms of who you want to play. But the gameplay remains as tight as ever, with each team and their players being revised at the start of each season. This is a definite favourite of mine, and being a lifelong Brewers player certainly has its perks. Tacky Noko. This to me is the definition of a gateway game. Of course it has to be accessible, both in terms of theme and ease of learning, but just as importantly it needs to teach the rudiments of a bunch of different mechanics, and this game does that in a number of delightful ways. Be it action points, set collection, route building, grid movement, you name it, Tacky's got it. You basically start the game with one communal tile, and then all players start adding tiles to the modular board, looking to meet one of three types of objectives: growing bamboo, instructing the panda to eat bamboo, or placing appropriately coloured tiles in the right orientation. The weather will have a different global effect on each player turn, and you can rarely do the same action twice on your go. The fact that it crams all this in without ever becoming overcomplicated makes a sweet, sweet game that is a pleasure to get to the table with any old random. Sushi Go Party. If you like drafting, you like Sushi Go. How's that for a bold statement? If you like Sushi Go though, you also like Sushi Go Party. More choice on the menu, that's for sure, which provides high levels of replayability. There is, to be fair, only so much skill involved in said drafting here, but because you're coupling it with some tantalising set collection elements, it's just a game that sings in a lightweight or party environment. It really is accessible to all ages as well, which is a real plus. No matter what's on the menu, you're still going to have to choose your cards carefully, because quite often the difference between obtaining the sets you need and falling just short is minimal indeed. There aren't too many games that are so universally enjoyed from where I come from, and for that reason this is a staple game in my collection. The Seventh Continent. I really do admire games that have such an expansive ambition to provide a great deal of storytelling and exploration content in one big box, and Seventh Continent does that in spades. The bulk of the game is just small square cards, but on those cards are the areas you're going to explore, the obstacles you're going to overcome, and the items you can gain to help you on your adventures. The basic premise is you're trying to lift a curse on you and your fellow intrepid adventurers. And your life force is also represented by a deck of cards. So the more cards you draw to try and achieve favourable outcomes to encounters, the less time you're going to have to get out alive. I can't actually nail down the reasons why I love this game. Maybe it's because you really do inhabit the setting of the game, and you're always curious just what could possibly be over yonder. Either way, it's number 42 on my list for a reason. The Castles of Burgundy, the dice game. There will come a day when I play Mama B, the original Castles of Ron Burgundy, but as of February 2020 that's still not the case. I've played this and the card game version, and this is my favourite of the two. In fact, this is one of my favourite roll and writes full stop. Each and every game feels fresh, and the roll of a dice will generally allow you to adopt a different approach to gaining the most amount of points as possible. The bonus abilities you get for completing various territories all feel useful, allowing you to manipulate dice, take multiple actions, etc. And the bottom line is the quicker you complete these territories, the more points you're going to get at the end of the 3 ages. This is a real favourite of mine and the good ladies, which is always going to give itself some goodwill and its high placement on my list. I do hope you've enjoyed my choices so far. Stay tuned for the next 10 games on my list. This video has ended.